President Roosevelt and the people of America, listen to my story. I speak from the besieged city of Warsaw, Poland. My name is Bryan. During this time, we have been cut off from all communication with the outside world. And now I have this chance to get a message through to America. To tell everyone in America, including you, President Roosevelt, what has happened to us here. And to the 35 million innocent Polish people, America must act. It must help. She must demand that this most dreadful slaughter of modern times be stopped.
Welcome back to the channel. This week we head back to World War II and the invasion of Poland, uncovering the story behind a series of pictures that shocked the world as they displayed the true horror of war. This is the story of Kazimiera Mika, a young girl in Warsaw whose image was captured in her moment of unimaginable grief following the death of her older sister, killed by Germans as she dug potatoes for her starving family. A US war correspondent named Julien Bryan just happened to be on site to witness this moment and capture these pictures forever. In this video, I tell you the story behind those pictures, about the family of Kazimiera, their life prior to the invasion, and how it would all change with the war. I show you how I uncover the location of this event using imagery from 1939 and transposing mapping of the time. We look at who was responsible for the attack, and if you stick around, you'll find out exactly what would become of young Kazimiera.
I've just returned from Warsaw. For 2 weeks while in the besieged city, I photographed the struggles and agony of a people faced with the horror of modern war. I arrived in Warsaw the 7th day of the war to find a third of the city already a shambles. The situation was far more serious than the meager censored news reports had indicated. The Polish government, and with it all foreign correspondents, had fled Warsaw 2 days before, and these were the only pictures made in the city during the siege. Barricades were being thrown up throughout the town. Everyone had to help, and soldiers conscripted civilians on the streets, putting them to work. I saw one man who was stopped 6 times on his way home with a loaf of bread. It took him all afternoon to get back to his family. On the 10th day, soldiers started flooding back, retreating. Warsaw was almost surrounded. By this time, the German Air Force, which had outnumbered the Polish planes by 20 to 1, had left not a defending ship in the sky. German planes dived low over the city as they attacked. In the fields outside was the most tragic scene I ever witnessed. 7 women had been machine gunned from the air while digging potatoes. Even as I passed, the peasants were returning to the potato fields. They knew that if they dug, they might be machine gunned, but if they didn't, that they would surely starve. I questioned the residents of a small suburb lying on the outskirts of Warsaw. One woman explained that the planes flew low just above the treetops, spraying the fleeing women with machine gun bullets. Still another told of 9 who were killed by shell fire as they stood in a bread line. Many of the middle-aged were sullen and angry. Youngsters were half resentful, half resigned, while their elders turned to prayer. These are the faces of a nation besieged.
This is the footage taken by Julien Bryan immediately following the attack on those potato diggers. It shows a young girl, hysterical with grief, who cannot comprehend what's happened to her sister. She has never known death before. She's seen pleading with her sister, and she's clearly in shock. Her sister is hit in the neck and the cheek, leaving gruesome injuries, which I can't share on this channel. She's also been hit in the shoulder, and you can see her clutching the wound as rigor mortis has set in.
A little girl of 10 rushed up, sobbing hysterically, and fell on her knees before the body of her dead sister. She shrieked, "Oh, my sister, why have you changed? Why are you no longer beautiful?"
So let's find the location in Warsaw. Now, using mapping from 1939, we can transpose the railways and other critical infrastructure, as well as locations of high-density urban areas from 1939. And this gives us a feel for just how much the city has grown. But Bryan says that the bombings took place at the edge of town. So we're looking for that interface between the urban and the rural areas from 1939 and where there might be fields or allotments that still exist today. If the site's been built over, well then we've got no chance of finding it anyway. To do this, I ringed goose egg areas where there are green open spaces which existed from 1939, which are still around today. And there are 5 key areas that I want to investigate. Now, the key feature we need to look out for is this wall. If it survives, we could very well be in the right area. I then spent ages looking at all of these likely areas, and I just wanted to share this search on Google Earth because it is quite tedious. Now, this is where there were parks, open fields, orchards, and allotments. And in all of these areas, I was looking for a road which existed in 1939, which still exists today. I wasn't looking for a modern road. And I was looking for some sort of boundary wall, perhaps a public park or a public building, or maybe even a palace. Now, some of this looked really quite promising, and I was sure that the roads were contemporary to 1939, and they were indeed bordered by green areas that still existed from 1939 too. And this included allotments where people conceivably could have grown potatoes during the war. But I just couldn't get anything to match up. Some of these walls looked old enough, but they weren't quite right. They didn't have the correct tops on them. Perhaps the walls had been rebuilt or damaged. I just couldn't tell, and I was losing quite a lot of confidence as this process was going. But all the time, I was comparing them to the images we had from that day. At times, I got excited thinking we might have the right place, but then I came across this location, and to me, I thought it was perfect. They looked a little bit too modern. I wasn't sure if they were new or whether they'd been rebuilt, but when I overlaid the photos, I was sure that we had the right location. Now, this is Jana Ostoroga Street, and I'm sure I've pronounced that incorrectly. Let me know in the comments if I have. But this wall borders the cemetery on the western edge of town, so clearly that hasn't changed. The location that I suspect the killings took place is right next to what is now the police station or a police headquarters. And this is the road with the wall running along it, so let's go and have another look. I'm certain this is the place. Check it out on Google Earth for yourself and let me know in the comments what you think. So what happened to Kazimiera Mika? Well, for this next part, I have come to the Mace, or Mount Ormel, a very famous location in Normandy at the neck of the Falaise Pocket. Now, this location is known for the very brave Polish action which occurred here as they fought off repeated and sustained attacks by Germans, as the Germans frantically tried to force the Polish from the hill and prevent their encirclement. I can't think of anywhere more appropriate to tell the rest of this story than from here. So Kazimiera would survive the war. She would be forever linked to this famous picture of her being comforted by Bryan, and it was almost 20 years later when the couple were reunited to recreate that image, and they did so in the very same spot where her sister was killed. And what follows is her story in her own words.
Nazywam się Mika Kazimiera z domu Kostewicz.
The famous photo shows me kneeling next to Annie, my sister. Annie was a very diligent student. She finished 7th grade and she wanted to continue studying, but we had no money for textbooks or even for clothing. In secret, she wrote a letter to the editor of a daily newspaper. And one day the editor replied, "Do not worry, Annie, you will get clothes and you will get books and your daddy will get a job." On the morning of September 13th, my aunt and Annie went to dig potatoes in the field, but then the Germans began bombing. Annie jumped out of the way and lay down in the field. The planes were flying low. The Germans fired their machine guns at them. Annie was hit with a bullet here, in the neck, and one in her spine, and shrapnel had buried into her shoulder blade. We waited in the basement. When we went to the field, I didn't know anyone near Annie. But then Brian appeared. I cried terribly. He hugged me, and he was saying something in English. My family survived the war apart from Annie and my youngest brother, Tadzio. He died in 1940 of starvation, and he was only 1.5 years old. It was terrible. People endured so much, and so many people suffered. Those people were tougher than steel. If Annie had stayed with us, she would have lived, but she was so smart. Sometimes she sat up all night by the lamp and studied. I was a dull ignoramus, but God gave me the longest life out of all of my siblings. Kazimiera Mika died in 2020. She had 4 grandchildren and 6 great-grandchildren. The location where Kazimiera is buried is in the cemetery on the other side of the wall to where Annie was killed. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, why not like it and leave me a comment, as it shows YouTube that this video is worth sharing with other viewers. Next up, we go back to Normandy for a video on the US breakout during Operation Cobra and the capture of St. Lo. We look at the story of the Major of St. Lo. Until next time.